Hi everyone, it's Caroline or Miss B Overseas. Thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you as always. Today I have some book recommendations. Book recommendation videos are one of my favorite things to sort of plan for and film, but if you scroll back on my channel, you'll see that I tend to not do the typical genre-based book recommendations video, and if I do genre-based book recommendations, it's genres that I have made up in my own head. So I think it was a couple of months ago that I posted one called Melancholy Middle Grade Recommendations, and really what I did in that video was I kind of explained the criteria for what I consider to be melancholy middle grade, and then I gave you some books that I thought kind of fit that criteria that I had read previously. So I'm back with another oddly, weirdly specific genre that I've invented in my head. So I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you the criteria kind of for what meets this genre in my mind, and then I have some books to recommend to you that I think fall under this genre. But really I'm posting this quite selfishly because I want to read more books that fit this overall tone or vibe, but it's not something that's necessarily Googleable. Like, it's not like it's a overarching genre, like I've said, and it's not even like it's a trope that I could just type into YouTube or Google, like found family trope recommendations or slow burn romance recommendations. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop rambling, and I'm going to tell you that this genre that I have invented in my head, I have come to lovingly call There Might Be Aliens. The criteria that typically fits in this There Might Be Aliens umbrella genre. I'm still not quite sure what to call it. Typically, it takes place in a small town. It's a contemporary setting, and this town is somehow disrupted by otherworldly or extraterrestrial behavior. Characters tend to have light talks or discussions of space and aliens, but it's never something that's too rooted in science or research. And the most important thing about this "Are there aliens" or "There might be aliens" genre is that question of are there actually aliens tends to never really get answered throughout the plot. It's always just this kind of mystery that's lurking in the background that's kind of causing chaos in this small town setting that it typically takes place in. It's upsetting and uprooting the characters' lives, but there doesn't always necessarily have to be actual closures or answers for this question of are there aliens or are there not, which is actually pretty funny because I feel like when I read fantastical things, like when I read fantasy, I tend to want loose ends tied up and I want an explanation for fantastical things, but for some reason in this specific genre, I really like kind of the unansweredness of it all. So I'm gonna go ahead and move into the recommendations portions of this video. I don't really have that many books that fall under this umbrella category, and not all of these books necessarily hit every single one of the criteria perfectly that I just listed, but I'm hoping that by giving you some concrete examples, it'll solidify this kind of vibe or tone that I'm searching for. And then selfishly, I'm hoping that I get some recommendations from you all. So the first recommendation I actually don't own a physical copy of, so I'm gonna scoot over really quick. It's When the Sky Fell on Splendor by Emily Henry. This is kind of what I would consider my blueprint for this There Might Be Aliens category. This is a story that's very much Stranger Things-esque. I think that if people had to put it in an actual real genre, it would be young adult contemporary. It focuses on this group of teens living in this really small rural town of Splendor, I think Ohio, and it's just this found family group that is so endearing. They have this kind of YouTube channel where they're trying to get it off the ground, but they're having a really hard time. And the whole initial premise and setup for this book in particular is that one night at the beginning of their summer, they're out and they're trying to film content for their YouTube channel. And this group of friends ends up witnessing this light that falls from the sky. And when they go to investigate it, they all kind of lose consciousness and they wake up several hours later having forgotten everything that's happened to them. And then throughout the rest of this plot, they're kind of dealing with the aftermath of this light that fell from the sky. The town, weird things keep happening in the town. There's kind of these markings that keep appearing, and then the group of teens discovers that the same markings that are appearing like on the ground are actually appearing on their bodies. And then as the plot goes on, the group of friends realizes that they each have gained some sort of otherworldly abilities or powers that they do not understand and they do not have control over. So the whole time this group of friends is trying to deal just with normal teenage summer things, but then also them gaining these supernatural abilities and not really knowing where they came from or why they possess them or how to use them. I think that the ending of this one in particular isn't necessarily for everyone. Like I said earlier, with this genre qualification, the question of are there actually aliens doesn't actually get answered, and that rings very true in this book in particular. The kind of unfinished quality to the ending I think was just very poignant and made me really love it. So that's my first recommendation for this There Might Be Aliens genre. My second recommendation is a book that I actually completed really recently, and it's More Than This by Patrick Ness. This one doesn't necessarily fall under this umbrella genre the whole time, but there were certain chunks of it that really kind of matched this tone that I was looking for. So if you don't know, the whole initial premise and setup of this book is that within the first like page, a boy drowns. And when he wakes up, he's in this world that is seemingly familiar to him, but there are very key elements that have been changed. For a large majority of this plot, the main character is kind of on his own and he's wondering how he got to be where he was. This one's kind of hard to talk plot-wise just because I really do recommend that if you pick this one up, you go in knowing as little as possible. There's no way for you really as the reader to guess what's happening next, and I think that's kind of a very key and important thing for this story, for the overall reading experience. But as the plot progresses, there is this kind of alien figure that's very much the sort of villainous monster of this story. And just the main character kind of constantly questioning where he is, if he's on Earth or if he's on some other planet, if he's somewhere otherworldly, if this villainous character is human or alien or robot or something else entirely. I think that it's something that the main character is constantly questioning, and I was constantly questioning, and all of those questions just about the setting and the character and if the main character was going to be okay and even where they were in the first place just really worked for me, and it really kind of fit this, are there aliens? Is this place that he ended up in alien? I don't know. It just really, all of the questions that were asked throughout this story really worked for me. All right, next book recommendation is It Came From the Sky by Chelsea Sedoti. This one is also kind of like When the Sky Fell on Splendor, in that if people had to genreify it, I think that it would fall under YA contemporary, and potentially this one would fall under YA contemporary too. All of these books kind of bend genres, but this one I think more so than those other two definitely fall under the more contemporary side of things. It focuses on these two teenage brothers that are living in this small town, and at the very beginning of the story, the older brother conducts this science experiment that goes terribly wrong and emits this kind of really loud noise and causes this crater to appear on their family's farmland. And in order to kind of cover up what they did to both like the parents and the police and the people of this town, the brothers agree, they make this pact that they are going to try to convince everyone that this is not their fault, but it is the work of aliens or something extraterrestrial. So from the very get-go of this book, you as the reader know that there are no aliens, and the main characters know that there are no aliens, but the whole kind of study that this story kind of explores is how far are people willing to go to believe a lie that they know is ridiculous. So the brothers at the beginning don't really believe that it's actually gonna work. They don't actually think that this rumor is gonna spread. And then as the plot develops, they realize more and more that people are willing to believe that aliens are coming to attack and lay siege on their town. Almost so much so that they begin to question themselves, and then you kind of as the reader are questioning yourself, and you're kind of like, wait, so are there aliens? Another cool element of this book is that it kind of incorporates like mixed media elements. The way that it's told is from the perspective kind of as of this older brother. He initially was going to try to keep logs of this initial experiment that he was trying to conduct, but then when it turns from science experiment to social experiment, brother keeps sort of like files and chat logs and telephone conversations and text messages, and there's even like a flyer or two interspersed every now and then. It just had the perfect amount of small town vibes, light alien discussion, and then also really cool talks about lying. There's multi-level marketing schemes kind of woven into this as well. I just loved the vibes of this one so much. Okay, I'm down to my last recommendation. I told you all that there wouldn't be that many. It's The Seep by Chana Porter. This one is interesting because it's never really a question of are there aliens, because from the very first chapter or couple of pages, you learn that there are, in fact, aliens. You learn that Earth has come to be invaded by this alien life force called the Seep, but they're not manifestations, like physical manifestations of aliens that can like walk around. The Seep is something that comes and infects or takes over human. Really, the Seep wants to do good by humans. The Seep's overall goal is to kind of create this utopian, idyllic society. So when they infect the human race, they kind of give humans the ability to do anything that they want to do, live however they want to live, look however they want to. But the real story kind of sets off when the main character's partner decides that she wants to be reborn as a baby. So then we're following our main character Trina as she loses this love of her life and kind of becomes disenchanted from this alien invasion, and we kind of just explore her inner thoughts and inner workings about this world that is supposed to be perfect but really isn't. Overall, I just found the writing has nothing to do with this genre that I'm trying to recommend to you, but the writing in this one in particular was at times laugh out loud funny, but then also extremely poignant. There were like singular sentences in here that made me like stop and tear up. Very existential. Existentialism, I think, is kind of another point that falls under this there might be aliens genre. Really, all of the characters in all of the books that I've mentioned at some point throughout the plot question, is there something greater? Is there more to this life? Is there something beyond? And yeah, those are all of the recommendations that I have for you for this sort of made up genre. I'm hoping that by giving you some concrete examples, it made a little more clear what in particular that I'm looking for. Hopefully you can see that it's not something that's just easily searchable, which is why I am coming to you, my dear viewers. Please let me know. Like I said, I am begging you to let me know if you have any books in mind that you think would fit this genre. I am desperate to read them, but please also let me know if you have any really specific genre types that you have made up in your head. They're kind of these things where you can't necessarily describe it, but you know it when you read it. I would be interested to see if anyone else has these types of things going on, swirling on in their mind. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're having a great day, and I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.